Hello everyone, I hope you have enjoyed your summer vacation and gained enough energy for a new school year. My name is Eva, and once again I would like to welcome you to our webinar in Let's Learn Together program. As some of you probably already know, these webinars are a part of Partners in Learning program initiated by Microsoft. And through the webinars we present innovative ways of using ICT in education. So, after a relaxing summer, we will continue to learn together. And this time we have with us Mr. Jacques Denies. Jacques is the manager at the School Technology Innovation Center located in Brussels, and he will guide us through a holistic view on technology and education. For a start, you've seen a few interesting facts about Belgium, and before we let Jacques take over, I would like to welcome Mr. Darko Jurekovic, Partners in Learning Manager for Microsoft Croatia, who joins us for each webinar to welcome all the participants. Darko?
Thank you, Eva. I hope you can all hear me very well. Greetings from Bratislava in Slovakia, where we are together on the company meeting for a couple of days, and I'm really glad to have Jacques speaking his views around technology and education. He is not just a friend, but also a teacher of sorts for me. I was his guest in Brussels a couple of months ago, and I saw many great things they are doing there in this School Technology Innovation Center. And I'm really glad that we can use live meeting technology to bring this information, the experience, the knowledge and ideas closer to the broader audience of educators around Europe using the internet and the live meeting technology. So far, so much from me for the time being. Many thanks to Jacques for skipping part of the conference, including lunch, to be able to deliver this presentation to all of you. And thank you all for investing your time and interest in this encounter with us today. Thank you very much all.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jacques Denies, as stated by Eva and by Darko. I'm really excited to be able to talk here, so thank you very much for this invitation, because that's what my daily life is about. Looking at education, looking at technology, and finding out where those two match. The center that I'm working in is placed in Brussels. As a teacher of geography, previous teacher of geography, I really would like to show where that is in Brussels, and the building over here next to the monument on that should be, let's say, a reminder on the independence of Belgium is the School Technology Innovation Center, part of a broader scope of Microsoft towards the entire public sector. So they're not just showcasing technology in education, but also showcasing education in healthcare, e-government, justice, defense, and so on. The main goal of the School Technology Innovation Center is to create that holistic view on education, as said. And we are also trying to do that on other things. Here you see the Finnish Minister of Education playing with a touch on a touch screen with maps, with digital maps, and we are showcasing not just Microsoft technology. In this case, these are Bing maps, but we also involve a lot of partners that created really interesting tools for education on the Microsoft platform. We are working with a lot of people. Most of the delegations are actually influencers, meaning people working at ministries in huge umbrella organizations, but also teachers come over, and then we have kind of trainers session. Briefing is actually just showcasing and technology and discussing it. I'd like also to share you what my experience is. So I was a teacher, and then I was confronted with people that wanted to learn more about technology in education. And one of the most important things that I learned is that so many people know that less of technology in education. An example, even ministers of education that come to our venue think that technology in education now is limited to a word processor instead of writing with a pencil on paper, and for instance, a spreadsheet instead of a classical calculator. And we all know, and all the people in this webinar certainly know, that the entire scope of working and teaching and learning in education has changed because of technology. That doesn't mean that before that time the technology entered, education wasn't working very well, but now you've got more tools, you've got more things to bring more students to a higher level than before. And I'm very sorry about this, because this was a bit difficult, because yes, this may work. As you will see, this has to build up, so I'm going back to the basic of this slide. The education system needs to align with the learner's digital world. And you see the learner as a center of the education system. And if you look at where he is confronted with new technology, well, it's everywhere. Probably at home, sometimes not. And that's very important for the teacher, for the school. In a social environment, youngsters can hang around, but they also hang around in a digital world. Digital networks, even local community, they interact through technology. The media is full of new technology. And therefore, the entire concept of the school, the coaching and infrastructure should be aligned to that digital world. Because the worst thing that can happen is that, for instance, a teacher is teaching another way the learner is learning. And therefore, we are educators. We also have to educate the student when they are interacting to work in a decent way, in a good way, in an efficient way. And if they just would be, for instance, in those digital networks without any guidance of the education system, that can be really hard. Think of bullying, but also very inefficient work. They can click around, and seldom they will find the real way of how to utilize the technology the best way. If you consider, for instance, basic IT as well, sometimes people say, well, education doesn't need to bother because students know how technology works. They are better in that than the teachers, so just don't teach the basics of IT anymore. Well, I completely disagree with that statement, because think of one's mother tongue. Children learn how to speak their native language at home with the parents and so on. But you easily can imagine what would happen if a school then wouldn't continue on educating them in their native language. It would be, let's say, a very limited usage of the language. Actually, it would be very regional oriented, and that means that we would actually disconnect the students from one region from another region. And therefore, everybody agrees that during the entire studying career, mother language is very important for students. Well, let's compare that with IT. If students just click around, they would be very good in gaming, very good in chatting. They would utilize a terrible SMS-like language, and therefore the school has to take up that challenge to do something about that and integrate technology in the entire system. So not just bring in computers and that's it. So many countries that I have worked with have got a really bad experience on bringing in the computers as they are and not working with the teachers in advance to make the best out of that investment. And therefore, even in the media that we are working, not just on paper, please integrate rich media. And I'm not going to start a discussion now about whether that should be paid for or that would be open source. If what's available for free is not good enough, well, then one has to pay to get it. Just like all other things in education, many the schools are paying for. Well, also the media, the tools, the content, in many cases needs to be paid for. Then another thing is the communication. If we just hand over papers with notes, with agendas and so to the children, well, they are passing us by always from the right, from the left, because they are very fast, much faster with their own digital technology. And therefore, I'll elaborate further on an example of communication and collaboration tools named Live@edu, which can be compared with Google Apps, for instance. Then also communication can be this live meeting. Well, in my home country, in Belgium, the government invested in a project on including students that had to stay home for a long while because of an accident, because of illness, long treatments in hospital and so on. That costed a lot, special ISDN lines, cameras, and then the student was fixed to one room and the school, the class was had to stay in one physical environment as well. Well, for instance, Live@edu and other solutions enable now that students can join the lesson in an interactive way, like we are now having this meeting. So it is very interesting that students now are enabled to join lessons wherever they are because of technology. Think of students that need to catch up when they come back after being home for days, weeks. It takes a lot of efforts. If, let's say, students are really sick, then it may be that they don't catch up before they drop out again, and that creates a lot of frustration, creates also students not to succeed at the end of the year, going for not that difficult type of education as before, while a real structured way of integrating them could involve them, could really create that feeling of belonging to the class and being part of the normal education system. Another thing that is very important, of course, those are the computers in the school. On the left side you see an interactive whiteboard. I'll talk about that later on as well. But the table, for instance, well, the computer screens, the computers are integrated in the table. A lot of schools, to my opinion, actually sacrificed in the wrong way space in the schools for computers, and then you had to bring students on other places together in smaller rooms. Well, just combine that. In every class, you should have computers. Sometimes it has to be limited to one computer for the teacher, and now and then the student can work with that as well. But in some cases you can work with computers, a set of 5, and then it's up to the teacher's approach to work diverse, so in groups, and now and then all students can work with the computers. Another possibility is actually, instead of going with students to a computer class, bringing the mobile computer class, into the normal class of the student. Here you see those kind of devices, actually rolling chariots, where you can even put a beamer in, a teacher's PC, you can connect through the internet if you put in an access point, and so on. Well, in our center, when groups are coming over, we offer the opportunity to work with these kind of devices, and so they can experience themselves, the teachers or the students if they're there, how that can be used the most efficient way. Because of course it's not that easy when all of the students are working with a computer. The teacher sometimes feels uncomfortable. What is happening? Or even worse, are my bloopers going to be shown even this evening at YouTube, on YouTube? And that creates sometimes the feeling for a teacher, well, we better don't start with that. Well, there are tools now. For instance, here you see the schoolmates, the small devices called classmates, Intel classmates. There are possibilities to really monitor that as a teacher or as an IT coordinator in the school. From a different angle, they can control what is happening on the content side, but also on the, let's say, the IT side. So computers are secured, and the teacher who will work with them afternoon, for instance, don't need to be afraid of what happened in the morning with those computers. There are really good monitoring tools that make sure that what the student is able to do is fine-tuned according to the lesson. On the left down side now you see also a solution by a partner, Sanaco, and that is actually one level higher of controlling the computer. The teacher, with one click, you see in the menu down there, you see lock PC. Well, that really all PCs in the class are locked, and the attention can't go else but to what the teacher is talking about. And the teacher can launch with one click, one software, one tool, and that's where the students need to work with. You also can see what is happening on all the screens, and in one go, for instance, bring the screen from one student's PC in front to the teacher PC and beam that so the entire class can see what is happening. Instead of bringing all the students around one PC with all risks for having, let's say, a kind of chaos in the class, you just bring it, you leave the students at their PC, you block those PCs, but you just bring over that good example, or that interesting example, can be that as well, for the entire class. And on top you see eLearningForce. I'll talk about that later on as well. We are convinced that nowadays studying, as I said, happens everywhere, at any time. Well, eLearningForce is such a partner that created a web environment. The name for that is now in the cloud, for education. Probably you know, like fixed example, Blackboard, Frontal, Moodle. Well, eLearningForce created this on SharePoint, and a lot of typical education-oriented tools are there that you won't find in a, let's say, a more classic web environment for collaboration. The next thing I would like to talk about is enabling students to stay in normal education. It's very important. We used to think about students that had a problem. Well, we really are caring for them and we'll put them in special education. That, in some cases, unfortunately, still will be the case. But a high percentage of students that years ago had to be sent to special education now can be included in normal education because of the technology. And in our center we've got a demo zone. It's not just about learning difficulties, it's also about vision difficulties, dexterity, handling a PC, actually movement with the hands is a problem, language and communication, and further on, aging. Well, aging in many cases is a kind of mixture of two or more of the other dysfunctions or impairments. Now, what kind of technology are we thinking about? Well, quickly run through that. Down right, you've got a keyboard for somebody who's working with one hand. And on the left side, between aging and language and communication, that's a foot mouse. The right foot can be on the shoe and controlling the mouse, the cursor, and the left foot then will press the buttons for left click, right click, double click, and even more functionality. In many cases, people with a dexterity problem, they were condemned to do nothing with the computer. Because if you couldn't work with that classic duo, the mouse and the keyboard, then you had to drop out. Now, there are a lot of possibilities. We are not going to elaborate on that now. As you can see, a computer for blind people, a scanner that scans text and read it out loud. Also, instead of a mouse, a possibility to work with a trackball. You even have got a speech computer where you just push a button and text will be spoken out loud to communicate. And more devices. We've got a complete demo in collaboration with a company that is delivering training for teachers on these devices. Because of course, once again, the teacher in normal education can be very surprised when he sees somebody in the class working with those devices. And then he should have an idea in advance, what is this about? Is this allowed? Is this okay? And why? And that can be learned now in the center as well. Quickly, some events at the STIC. We had ministers. You see me at number 1 standing up, that's me. Next to me there's the minister, and sitting down the assistant. On the surface, which is a multi-touch device. Too expensive for education now, but things are coming. You find very reasonable priced dual touch PCs, dual touch screens, and that really is very interesting, especially for smaller children. They just can grab pictures, make them bigger by sliding them up, by opening them, and so on. On the right side we had number 2, that's the winner for Belgium 2 years ago in Vienna at the Innovative Teachers Forum, and she had a 3rd prize in Salvador in Brazil. Number 3, DigiGirls, a European project, a worldwide project, and we had a European launch in our center with in the center over there you've got the previous Commissioner for Education from the European Union. And down on the right you find the minister sitting, on the right person sitting central on the image is the person with is the Kosovo Minister of Education. Now, briefly, 1 minute for each, if I allowed. Talking about netbooks, interactive whiteboards, multipoint server, digital portfolio, collaboration, communication, and learning management system. Sorry. Just my 2 cents on each of them. Schoolmate, school control, well, devices. Each student is on the computer. You have to be prepared. You have to know how to monitor it. This is the tool, the school control tool for management. You see down left, the screen normally is just limited to those to that software the teacher decides the student is able to work with, and the student can work independently. We have real nice examples of very good integration of one-on-one computing, meaning the student really is creating added value, learns better in a more efficient way through that way of working. Next, about the interactive whiteboards. Sadly, in many cases, we still see an abuse. And the reason is the same as the one I mentioned before. Devices just are put into a class and the teacher doesn't know what happens. And in that case, the interactive whiteboard is utilized as a very expensive screen for the beamer. And that's it. But you can point, interact, share, structure, create, enrich content thanks to an interactive whiteboard. You really, on the left side, you really are dragging with your hands all parameters, change them, and that would cost a lot of time. And teachers in mathematics don't do that, couldn't do that before, because each time recalculating the entire curve is impossible, but now students can follow and see the interaction of the parameters. Puzzles and so on, things are available just for small children or down in the center, more complicated graphic things as well. The third thing is the multipoint server. I don't know whether you heard about that. One computer, as at home, you often create several accounts for every member of your family, but each one has to log out before another one can work with the computer. And now you have one computer and you connect them with sets of screen, mouse, keyboard. Sound is also possible. And it's a small device, a hub, where you plug in one unit, all the screen, the mouse, the keyboard, the sound from one unit, and then connect to one USB port on the central multipoint server. You can imagine what that means. You can easily share one folder over there. It's very easy for a teacher to maintain that. Just one computer needs to be maintained. It can go up to 5, 10 or more units depending on the let's say the power of the computer involved, but it works very fine. We've tested that, and skeptic people, and teachers are, and have to be very skeptical about technology, tested it, starting to go for high video on all units together, but that one computer easily dealt with that, and it was a real nice thing to see how convinced teachers were. On those devices I also show something completely different. Digital portfolio, a simple OneNote. OneNote is one of the parts in Microsoft Office that actually is not so good known, but it's so simple. You can take notes the easy way, and you can create for each student a section, as you see, student A, B, C, D, E, and on the right side, per student, in this case student A, as you can see on top, has got a page per, let's say, social engagement, or it may be religion, mother language, English, and so on. And you can create sub-pages for parts of the subject. And I saw that, you wouldn't believe it, doing children 10 years old in Denmark. So simple. when they did something nice, then they were allowed to put it into their portfolio. It was a boost for those children because they were so proud when they were allowed to do that, and the teacher could annotate and give some positive comments. And now OneNote is also available online, and each of those sections can be password protected. The children will be able to show that at home what they did and what the teacher thought about it. This is not the strict digital portfolio as we expected at a higher level where you really have need certification and so on, but for students, for primary education, 10, 12 years old, it's really a very, very interesting thing to do. OneNote is very powerful for taking notes. You can easily record yourself. Ask student when he's reading out to record himself through OneNote, and he will listen to and he will understand what is good and what can be improved. Also video can be taken, and in some cases that also happens. For instance, when a teacher is saying something very important, he can ask, please record this because you have to know that. And that of course is a danger as well, or a challenge as well, but as a teacher, as you are used to do with classical tools, you also will be able to control that with your students just because of a trusted role student-teacher. Then collaboration. Well, students, as I said, need to be educated, so stop bullying, stop interfering, stop being lazy. Well, an efficient way of collaboration is through documents online where they can collaborate. It even is possible now with the Office web parts to work with Word, OneNote, Excel, PowerPoint and Outlook on the internet. Students may have a computer at home without Office, even without Windows. It may be an Apple computer, it may be a Linux computer, but they will be able to collaborate in this environment. If the school is monitoring this environment, and that is possible with Live at EDU, schools can grant and create accounts as much as they want for each student, for each teacher, then they are educating the youngsters to take their place in that digital collaborative world, in the social environments. There are a lot more things in Live at EDU, but that could be an entire webinar talking about the possibilities of this. But it's one of my favorites, talking about the possibility for a school to actually educate youngsters for also that digital world outside the classroom. And then the last thing is about the learning management system. EDULEARNINGFORCE created an environment where the teacher can work with course material, very rich course material. At a higher level, there is even anti-plagiarism, checking whether students just copy and pasted the things they submit as answers for instance, tests and so on. Assignments are easy to create. There is grading, and very important, we as a teacher were always stuck with piles of books or papers that students have been writing. Now, with the digital world, you can connect goals, you can to the assignments, and then see how are these goals evolving. Is the student doing a good job? Teachers were and are still incredibly good in notifying that, but now you can quantify this, analyze this in a real, let's say, scientific way, and it is a real asset. Really helps a lot if that is available. It is a secured environment together with Live at EDU, even in this case, where students can find what they need to do, where students are known with their name that has been given by the school in their account. So no bullying, a real good netiquette social behavior. And that is actually what I think should be the goal of our education system. Give all the students the possibilities to be in contact with technology the best way possible, thanks to the school. So thank you. I apologize it was a bit later, but I didn't know in advance there were some videos and so on. What I really appreciate it anyhow, but I hope there still is some time for some questions. Anyhow, I'm available to answer any question. Eva should.
Thank you, Jacques, for this great presentation, for telling us more about what you do at your center, and for sharing your thoughts and experience. So let's see if we have any questions. Just to remind everyone, you can ask Jacques questions orally by turning on your microphone, or by using the questions and answers tool from the menu in the bottom left corner. So if you have anything, just go ahead and write it. I will read it, and then Jacques will answer. In the meanwhile, Jacques, I have a question for you. So this is the fourth center that has been opened, right? There are 3 others, and now you're planning to open another one in South Africa, if I understood correctly.
Well, no, that's a bit outdated information. The STIC program, School Technology Innovations program, started with 5 STICs,
Okay.
and now they are, let's say, reorganized in different levels. You've got regional level, that's the highest level. You've got one in South Africa now, and you've got one in Brussels. Those are the 2 only regional school technology innovation centers. They are going for, let's say, well, the continent, Europe, or the Africa, and then you've got several setups of local centers where education technology is showcased, but that is at a local level, and it's not that much oriented towards ministries and so on, but more towards teachers.
Okay,
So
so
teachers can go there and test the technology and discuss it, for instance, all teachers know geography and so on, and then they come out with ideas and they can start utilizing that in their classroom.
okay, so you mainly educate teachers, right? Do you also educate students?
Not that much. What we are doing in Brussels now is working with a kind of pre-teachers training. That means that a teachers training school comes to Brussels, visiting Brussels, as a lot of schools are doing now. Previously it was going to Rome or to another, Athens, or another ancient city or something like that. But now a lot of students come to Brussels. They want to learn about the Europe institutions over there, but then they can stay 1 day with their teacher. And that's interesting, the pre-teachers training, that the docent, the professor, also is there, and he sees how his, well, call it business then, really can be improved by integrating technology. And the outcome over there, the teachers are working with the newest technology when they arrive in their first school, and that is a great advantage in many cases.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure many people here are wondering, how can someone from another country cooperate with your center? Do you produce any materials that schools from other countries can use?
No, because we are not producing material. As you could notice in the presentation, we are collaborating with different partners, smart technology concerning content. Apparently, we will restart collaboration with a Romanian company called Tiveco on content as well. We have got the tools for school management from Finnish companies and so on. No, the meaning of our center is to host events, delegations, and show them what is possible, and from there on, that those people would be multiplicators of, well, the good news, call it that way.
How do you cooperate with Belgian schools?
Well, once again, I think it was Darko. the partners in learning managers, I know them very well, and they bring over delegations, for instance, of umbrella organizations, and to experience, well, to have a deep dive into that new technology. We don't work that much with students because you've got thousands of schools in Belgium, and I know a lot of them because of my previous life as a coordinator for an umbrella organization of 650 schools. I know a lot of schools personally very well. If they all just could call and say, Jacques, we know you've got something interesting over there, can we pop in? It wouldn't be well bearable actually to work that way. So we are working towards with people, well, call it influencers, and if they understand, and decision makers, if they understand how important technology is and how important it is to do that in a holistic way as I presented it, so involving teachers, taking care of good training and so on, then we believe that a major step has been taken, and that initiatives just for the sake of, for instance, a politic guy that wants to see how he gave a computer in the school and that was on television and the day after nothing happens anymore, that can be avoided, then we are more than happy.
And what about the government? I assume you work with them well. I saw pictures of ministers visiting your center.
Yeah. And once again, for instance, I'm not going to name the country, but the minister saw an interactive whiteboard. He said, well, yeah, that will be a prototype. How many years will it last before such a thing will be available for schools? And then I answered him that in more than 70% of the classrooms in the United Kingdom, these interactive boards are available. And he immediately understood how interesting it was actually to have a look at what is available, what is happening already in the schools worldwide, in education system, how is education also has entered the 21st century, and that education system is not the same as the one when he was in the school. And in that way, we hope that he or she, that those governments will understand we need to invest, and we have to do it in a careful, well thought over, and well prepared way.
Okay, someone is laughing pretty loud.
Yes, I can hear.
Well, can I please ask whoever it is to keep it down a little bit? Okay, I think we have that covered.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So I assume that the schools are supported by the government in Belgium. Yep. That they're supported in their idea to have technology in their classrooms, right? Because I know that many countries have issues with that. Yeah,
and also in Belgium and any country that comes to the STIC encounters the same problems. It's a matter of money. It's a matter of availability. It's a matter of adapting the education system, as giving the tools to the teachers to change as well, in a way they feel comfortable. And we try to offer several roadmaps to achieve that goal.
Okay, so you basically help the government to work with the schools and vice versa.
Yeah, and sometimes we involve partners that also are coming over, not Microsoft people, that are telling partners from that country, and then they explain, well, what you see over here, we could offer to collaborate with you in our country and to do it that way. And these are the steps to consider. And you know that we are based really at walking distance of the buildings of the European institutions. Well, Europe, the European institutions have decided, and other countries like Croatia are also aligning to that way of thinking of this year having at least one computer per 10 students, general, over all education systems. And if it doesn't work yet, then we try to help. How can you do that? And more important, that they are utilized the best way, in a relevant way, the best way possible.
Okay, so we have a question from one of the participants. Alan is asking, do you expect any difficulties regarding current crisis and introducing of new ICT in our schools?
The answer definitely is yes, because you need money, and then you see budgets that are cut dramatically, and in many cases governments consider, well, they have been working that long that way, so we easily can postpone it for a couple of months, years, and so on. That does happen. I've got clear examples. I'm not going to tell about that, but we had a government that created a complete set. We had a minister and all stakeholders of education at a higher level and finance, and so in our center we involved famous education systems from Cambridge and so on. They had a deep dive in technology. They came out with a real concrete plan. They started it and they stopped for 1.5 years investing. And now they are restarting and actually kind of rethinking the way of investment. Because those investments do happen, but the answer definitely is yes, crisis, the financial crisis does influence this kind of initiatives.
Okay, thank you for the answer. Ahmed also has a question. How much Microsoft products are present in your education system in percentage? In Belgium education system, obviously.
Well, I hope Darko isn't listening now. I've written the first manual on Linux in Dutch. I've started with Apple computers, and in my system I had a team of about 40 people. I always want to have diversity, not just Microsoft technology, but also other technology, Linux and so on. And people saw what worked and how things worked. But for one or another reason, nowadays, the last survey that has been taken, 98% of student computers in education work on Windows in the northern part of Belgium.
Okay, well, I guess that's a good answer for Microsoft.
I solemnly swear I didn't. I did the best for all kinds of the whole ways of working with computers, but at that moment, with Partners in Learning, the education approach, the way, the support we got, and the long-term vision, and the sustainability, although some people are not always happy when another version is coming out of things they now finally had a good course on. Well, that actually was a stability that was appreciated, apparently.
Okay, thank you. Vesna, well, Vesna doesn't have a question. Oh, actually, yes, she does. She says, I have a SMARTBOARD in my math class, but I'm not using it as I wish. I use it as a white screen. What tool can you recommend?
Well, there are several tools now, because SMARTBOARD is Smart Technologies. It's a Canadian company from Calgary. Is now, and also Promethean, Interride, name it, are more and more integrating their tools, their typical software for in a Windows environment. They also do it for Linux and Apple OS, but certainly for Windows, and I see that as I showcased in the presentation, that even in the basic notebook, that's the name of the software, notebook, that you got real nice tools that are able to enhance a math lesson for at any level, meaning from the basic counting up to the very complicated algebraic and other mathematical subjects. It's the interactive way that is really, let's say, appreciated a lot. In Notebook, you can freely download the software and the interactive tools for algebraic curves and so on, where you can, with your hands, actually influence the parameters and see what that means for the graphic. And I see, for instance, even very basic, I don't know at what age you are teaching, but to what age you are teaching, but I, for instance, saw, and allow me, yeah, can I go back to that picture, Eva, just quickly?
Yeah, which one?
I'm taking it back already. I'm clicking.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, just a moment, then I'll show you this. Well, central down, you even see how you can make a circle instead of with gray and a fine ribbon or something like that. You really do it the right way. Measuring an angle, you just show that you are in front of half the class because of that plastic or wooden device you were measuring with, but now you can put it over there. It's complete, it's correct, and you can save it and give it to the students. So that interaction of providing also the steps of a measuring process is now available thanks to an interactive whiteboard. But I must say, I also have people in my center that said the interactive whiteboard is the first thing that should be thrown out of the school, because now a teacher only will want to be in front of the class and teach instead of investing in collaboration. Well, one of the biggest mistakes you can make is one of all the tools that I mentioned, make that the absolutely number one and only number, and only device, only vehicle of technology in your classroom, and things won't work. You have to be a teacher as you were before, that's deciding what to utilize, when, and how. And that is something that's also the case for frontal teaching. Instructions always will be given. You won't have students that will, from A to Z, be working together or just learning by themselves independently. That is important, very important nowadays, but the frontal teaching can be improved as well, and these are examples how to do it.
Okay, Vesna says thank you, and that is what she was looking for. Darko has a question. Darko, go ahead.
Darko, were you laughing at me?
No, definitely not. If schools from the region, and just let me tell you that in this live meeting webinar, we have participants from countries, I'll put them in alphabetical order, from Belgium, from Bosnia and Herzegovina, from Croatia, from Montenegro, and from Serbia. So if schools from this region of Europe would like to set up a visit or a joint project with STIC in Brussels, what's the right way for them to start talking about it?
Well, they have to look for Darko in their country. So we are 90% of the visits are driven through the local Partners in Learning manager. So the Partners in Learning manager, Darko, for Croatia, it would be you. And if the school has got the possibility to bring a delegation to Brussels and you can join them, then we can discuss a convincing and interesting agenda, and they are more than welcome. But that's the way to work through the partners. Actually, my manager, my boss, is the partner in learner lead, partner in learning lead for Western Europe. But I also am collaborating with other regions as well. Of course, Central and Eastern Europe is Theo Milef is also very frequently in our center, and I did have visits from the Baltics. From there's one coming up from Romania. I had Georgia, Azerbaijan, and so on. Croatia was also already in our center, but I understand it's not that easy to bring over people. Flights still cost a lot of money, but Microsoft has put the center over there because in many cases you can fly in the morning. Well, then you have to leave at the airport at 7 o'clock or something like that, like I did this morning, and then you are able to fly back in the evening. It's a full day, but it's feasible to do.
Okay, thank you. Darko, do you have any more questions?
No, I just wanted to let our guests and attendees know if they would like to get a more profound overview of the activities, the projects, and the possible learning outcomes of their visit to STIC in Brussels. What would be the right approach to start this potential study visit?
Well, I definitely hope that at least some of them, at least some of the schools will find a way to actually go to Brussels and see what Jacques is working on.
Me too.
Okay, so I have one last question. It's concerning the teachers. You mentioned before that you were a teacher for a long time. So from your perspective, do you have any insights on how teachers in Belgium accept technology in their classrooms? Are they accepting the changes easily, or do they have troubles with it?
Thank you. Very interesting question. And yes, as I said before, I'm an oldie. I'm working more than 34 years, 35th year now in education. But from the beginning on, when the computer was available, I worked with it and I still continue working with it, being convinced of the added value. More children will get further thanks to that technology. But coming back to your question, in Belgium it's the same as everywhere. And the process of how many people make the move, change, start working differently, is the same as in every other domain of the society. You've got the early adapters, and then you've got people that, well, say, well, not now, I'm too old, or it's too expensive, or the school hasn't got the possibility, and they are right, because that's the situation in their case. But let me tell you the story, my experience in Belgium. I had the first group of teachers, 150, on a regular basis, mathematics teachers that were following training on ICT usage, content-wise, improving mathematics lessons. And 150, that was good, and it went on, and it went on. And then, suddenly, after 4 years, the government, or the umbrella organization, decided to integrate it as mandatory into some courses. Actually, it was said, you won't teach that the classical way, some subjects, but you'll do that in an interactive, digital-driven environment. The year after that, I had more than 1,000 registrations for that same course, that same training. And that's what's happening now. There are still people that say, well, we don't need to do that. We were working the good way, and that was correct. Why should we? And they look more at the disadvantages than at the advantages of working with technology. Well, my thoughts about that are, those people, they feel themselves empowered in that vision. If the government, if, let's say, the authority, can be a local government, can be a school, can be the Ministry of Education, is not deciding, now we are going for it. As long as that doesn't happen, you always will have people that say, we don't need to do it. But, first of all, if that decision is made, please empower the teachers in advance, involve them, and then it should work. And there are nice examples, really good examples, international-wise, of a consequent, consistent utilization of IT, and also deciding, for this we are not going to utilize new technology, we are going to do that the classic way, that still is very important, and then it will work. But you need, let's say, a decision to be made, a mandatory one, after all tools are offered for the school, the teachers, and the students to be to make that move.
Okay, thank you. That was a very good answer. I'm sure all the participants actually, well, those participants that are here with us are actually one of the rare ones that really use technology in their classes. So I think we have come to an end of another successful webinar. Darko, if you have any other questions or comments?
No, thank you very much. I'm just pleased that we had such a vivid discussion and there were so many questions. Obviously, this is an interesting topic, and I'm glad that our attendees had enough time and patience to go through the whole content and through the whole conversation. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks to everyone for participating. I would also like to invite you to join us on our next webinar, which will take place on September 21st. You will receive an email invitation, and I hope you'll join us to hear about an innovative project from Switzerland. And again, thank you, Jacques. It was a very interesting presentation. Thank you for your answers. Thanks to all the participants, and I hope to see you again online very soon.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me, and it was really a pleasure for me to share this experience that I was able to collect thanks to actually education itself. And my deepest appreciation and admiration to the teachers that really make this happen for the students.
Thank you, Jacques.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
To all of us, to all of you, have a great day. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye.